Hey guys, Dani here with Skye Gardens. Welcome back to my channel. So first thing, I'm gonna apologize if it sounds a bit echoey. I usually record with my microphone, but for whatever reason, it stopped working yesterday. So I'm just gonna talk to the camera and hopefully it's not too annoying. I'm at the farm. We're here a week out from Christmas, and I thought, this time of year is when I look back, of course, at how things went, for this whole growing year. How did things go with the growing? How did things go with the selling? How did things go with my business? Is there anything that I want to change for next year? Next year, I'll be going into my third full year selling, technically our fourth year on the farm. And so I'm really starting to get the hang of things, and the growing things is kind of getting on point. So I really want to hone in on things that are working and start weeding out some things that are not working. So I wanted to make a video in particular on the flowers that I sold and which ones did the best and sold the most, and which ones did the worst and sold the least. Maybe you're somebody who's new to flower farming, or you're wanting to get into it. You're not quite sure what to grow, especially if you live in a hot climate like me. If you guys are new here, my farm is right northeast of Houston. So we're in South Texas, Zone 9B. It is a hot climate, and that's a big thing that I focus on here on my YouTube channel, is growing flowers, growing other things in a hot climate. So hopefully this list will kind of give you some good guidelines and ideas for things to grow that might be, really popular in your area. Now, the way that I sell flowers at my farm, I sell wholesale to florists and other growers. I'll do the occasional little retail arrangement, not very often. I have a U-pick field that we opened in the spring and the fall. I did my first workshop this past year, and I also did a random fall market, and I have a bouquet subscription. So this year I was able to track, of course, all my wholesale orders, and I was able to look back and track my bouquet subscriptions, the flowers that I put together for random arrangements, and my farmer's market that I did. I was not able to track every single flower we used for the workshop. I was not able to track every single flower people cut from the U-pick fields. And I was not able to track all the flowers that I saved for drying to make dried floral crafts. But I will say, looking back at all of those, the list I'm fixing to share with you is pretty representative of those as well. So I feel like this list really does show how this year went and what, did the best and what did the worst. If you have any questions on any of this or any particular flower, comment below. I would also love to hear if you guys have any recommendations or requests for future videos. I'm always open to ideas, and I would love to hear from you about what you want to see from me. All right, so this past year, the flowers that I tracked, I grew and sold 29 different types of flowers. Now, I know that's a lot, and you're going to hear from a lot of people, oh, you can't grow that many types of flowers. That's stupid. That's too much. And look, I get it, and I'm not saying that I don't agree with that, but I think it's totally fine to grow a lot of different types of flowers if you're organized and you can stay on top of each particular flower, and their growing requirements, harvest requirements, and that kind of stuff. And I do. I'm a very organized, on the point person. Are there some things I missed this past year? Yeah. Am I going to cut some of these flowers out? Yeah. And I also think that it's fine when you're first starting out, you're kind of getting a feel for your market and trying to figure out, what is not only going to grow well in my environment at my farm, but what is going to sell well. You may think that people love this one particular flower and you grow it and you can't sell hardly any of it. Or you might think like, oh, I'm going to grow X flower, just, a little bit, and we'll see what happens. And it takes off and you sell every single stem. So I think the first year or two of your farm, and this is what I have experienced, it's fine to grow a lot of different stuff and try things out. But, you know, every year you want to evaluate what's doing well and what's not, including, you know, the growing of the flowers and selling, and try to like pick things out, whether it's a particular type of flower or certain varieties. And that's definitely what I've been doing year to year. But I'm going to kind of go from the like worst sellers to my top sellers. So we're going to start at the bottom of the list. Now, this next handful of flowers that I'm going to go through, they all represent 1 or less % of my total flower sales. And when I talk about flower sales, I'm talking about number of flowers. I'm not necessarily talking about the money they brought in or the profit, although I can kind of tell you as we go through these how profitable they are for me right now. So my worst selling flower this year, unfortunately, was celosia. And this was a growing issue. Usually celosia does really well here. It's easy to grow and I can sell a lot of it. I also dry it and use a lot of it. However, I ran out of time starting seeds for celosia and just couldn't get my act together. I ended up ordering plugs. The plugs did not do well once I transplanted them, and I had almost no usable stems, which was really disappointing. So definitely my goal for this next year to do much better with celosia, because I do love it and I do usually use and sell a lot of it. Next on the list, gladiolas. So I love gladiolas. I think they're beautiful. They grow well here, but in the past, I haven't been able to sell a lot of them. There's not a lot of demand for them. I think the florists can get them pretty cheap from overseas. So this year, I was not going to spend a lot of money on bulbs. I wasn't going to grow them at all, and I ended up buying a couple of packs from Costco and just planted them, and I ended up using them in bouquet subscriptions and in other arrangements, and I did use up almost all of the blooms that I planted. I just only planted like 50, so that's why they're so far down on the list. So I'm kind of on the fence still with gladiolas. I mean, I like them. I think they're gorgeous. I think they're a cool additive to arrangements. Did I order any right now for next year? No. I might just do the Costco thing again. I might not grow them. Who knows? All right, next up was basil. So basil, it's a weird thing to think about basil. So typically I've always grown cinnamon and lemon, beautiful colors. Basil is really easy to grow. It does not mind the heat at all. It can have some pest issues. I did definitely grow a lot of basil this year. I ended up not using it. It has no demand from florists or other growers. The florists don't like it because it has a pretty strong smell. It's definitely more of that like wildflower look. So people that do weddings are typically not going to use basil unless it's like a specifically wild looking wedding. And basil does not store in a cooler well at all, and florists don't like that. So I didn't sell any to florists. And then the other growers that I sell to, they all grow their own basil because it's so easy to grow. So I used a little bit here and there, but honestly, planted a bunch, didn't use much of it at all. However, basil is one of the best plants for supporting honeybees, and we do keep honeybees here on our farm and harvest honey. So they're extremely beneficial for that. I think this next year, and I would say they're profitable if you can use them because they're so, like I said, they're so easy to grow and seeds are cheap. But I think this next year, I'll probably still plant a small patch so I can use it here and there, and so it'll feed our honeybees, but I'm really gonna cut down on how much basil I grow. All right, next up is Tweedia, and this was a new flower for me this year. So I wanted to grow this because a friend recommended it to me. She grows it here and loves it. And it is a true blue flower, which if you don't know, blue flowers, true blues, are really hard to come by in the flower world, which seems silly. You would think that there would be plenty of blue flowers, but there's actually not. It's actually the color that is least represented in nature other than water. So finding a good cut flower that's a true blue is hard, and Tweedia is one of those, and it's a beautiful light blue. It's perfect for wedding work if, you know, brides want that blue color. So I ordered a bunch of plugs. They look great. They grew fine. They bloomed beautifully. They were incredibly short, so almost unusable, which was really disappointing. I couldn't sell, I think I sold maybe one bunch to a florist. I used some in my own arrangements, but mostly I would say they went unused. They also have a really milky, sticky sap, so you have to be very careful when you cut and use them. I would not recommend putting them in a U-pick or having people pick them on their own. I think just you as the farmer should be using them. I will say I've reached out and heard back from other people that grow it that they've been able to overwinter it, and it does look better the second year. So that's what I'm doing. I kept it alive all summer. I had a few plants die, but for the most part, it's doing pretty well. And it's actually gotten bigger. I had a few blooms in the fall. So I'm interested to see if I can, you know, overwinter it, how it looks in the spring, because the flowers are gorgeous, and I think it would be a big hit if I can get it to grow right. All right, next up on the list, I have Lisianthus, and this was really sad for me this year. So the last couple of years, I have grown Lisianthus, and they have done beautifully, and everyone loves Lisianthus. They're a long-lasting flower. They don't mind the heat. They're gorgeous for day-to-day or event work. And I typically order plugs because they're hard to start by seed. And this year, you know, I ordered them, I got them planted. I had a lot die, I think just from transplant shock. I don't know if it was a watering issue or it was like too cold and wet when I transplanted them. And then just the growing season had some issues with the weather up and down, and then weeds took over. And so I had almost no usable Lisianthus this year. I mean, I had a few that I used in my own arrangements and bouquet subscriptions, but not as much as in previous years. And that was really disappointing because Lisianthus plugs are not cheap. And because the weeds really got away from me this year, I was not able to keep them because according to the great Dave Dowling, you should be able to overwinter Lisianthus in a warmer climate and get even bigger, better blooms the second year. So, and I've grown like multiple different varieties. So what I'm gonna do this for 2026, I ordered only 3 varieties, a couple that I've grown before. I get them in January every year, plant them, grow them. I'm gonna keep a really close eye on them, really baby them, make sure that they grow really well. And if I can, I am going to keep them in place and overwinter them next year and see how they do the following year. So not giving up on Lisianthus, just did not have a good year with them this year. All right, next up I have Bee Balm. And I love Bee Balm. I think it's a fun, unique flower. I don't actually grow Bee Balm on purpose. So when we first got the property, there were some places I threw out some wildflower seeds and I had some grow, and it has self-seeded, and now it comes back like full force right around the U-pick field. I mean, it's gorgeous with all the Bee Balm and the black-eyed Susans in the springtime. So I can go harvest off of it super easy, and I sold like a fair amount. I did not sell a lot of it, but because I don't purposely plant it or take care of it at all, it is a highly profitable flower. I mean, it's almost free for me to go out and harvest it. So I love it. I love having it and using it. And maybe this next year I'll end up selling more of it. On that same note this year was bachelor buttons. Bachelor buttons are another one that I don't purposely plant. They are in a mix that I grow in my wildflower field. And I definitely sold a handful of those to florists. I would just cut like the whole chunk of them and sell that. So it was like really easy to harvest. I didn't purposely plant them. They just grew and I just sold what I could sell. And bachelor buttons are another one where you can get a really true blue variety. So they're really good for that purpose. So once again, highly profitable flower just because I didn't have to do anything with growing them. They just kind of like self-seeded themselves. And hopefully next year, once again, I'll use more of them. All right, after this we have straw flower. So typically with straw flower, I order plugs. They can be a little difficult to start from seed. I had some growing issues with the straw flower. I had some plugs die and just overall not do as well as they have in previous years. But I had a fair amount grow. And the thing is with straw flower, I do end up selling a good chunk of it to florists and other growers, but I do save a lot because straw flower dries really well. So it's one of the top flowers that I grow for drying. So I can use it on like my flower pumpkins and wreaths and things like that that I make in the fall. So I think straw flower would be higher up on the list if I was able to track how much that I dried and saved and used, but that's just really hard to do. So I'm definitely still going to grow straw flower and just see if I can, keep the pest issues down and try to sell more to florists. Next up is amaranth, and this, I had a really bad growing year for amaranth. They are super prone to pest issues. Amaranth and celosia get caterpillars on them like no other, and you really have to keep on top of spraying them. There's really no way around it, and I just didn't. I had a lot grow, but it got so much damage from the caterpillars that a lot of it was unfortunately unusable. I did sell some of it, and especially the ones that are like drapey. Florists really like those. I mean, they're super pretty. So really that particular type of amaranth, green tassels, that's the one I grew this year. I'm going to grow a couple of them next year. So every single stem I could harvest of that was tall enough, I sold it. So definitely going to grow a lot more of that next year. And that one was actually less prone to pest damage. So while amaranth didn't do very well, I mean, typically it is easy to grow. It likes the heat. So I think growing, since I sell a lot to florists, growing more of the drapey amaranth, I think is going to be the way to go in the future. Next on the list are my mums. Now, with mums, I don't track selling the cuttings. So I would say in general, they are a profitable flower/plant for me because I can keep the same plants and take cuttings and grow more plants on my own without really spending a lot of money. I sell the cuttings, which is a good money maker for me, and then I can also sell the flowers. The hiccup with the mums this year is this was the first year that I planted them in the ground. The previous several years I've grown them in containers, but I finally found a spot that I wanted to put them in the ground, and they just did not do as good as in the containers. And I'm not really sure why. I don't know if it was just like the first year trying this out. I mean, I've grown them in containers in this same spot. I just put them in the ground this year. I did a soil test. I amended the soil just like I do everywhere else. So there were a lot of flowers that grew fine, just were too short. And so I could not sell the stems. But I did have a handful that I was able to sell and use. And the plants overall still look good. So of course I'm gonna overwinter them, take cuttings in the spring and sell those. I'll take my own cuttings and multiply my stock and, see how they do this next year. Hopefully they do a lot better. Next up we have mint. So this year I grew apple mint and pineapple mint. The pineapple did not take off well at all, although I will say now that it's cooled back off, some of it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna overwinter it. The apple mint was okay. I didn't have a ton of usable stems. It stayed a little on the shorter side. I think a lot of my stuff this year was too short because we didn't have as intense of heat in the summer as we have in the past, but we did have several months with no rain. Like I think almost 3 months without rain. It was kind of crazy. And when you combine that was at the end of the summer, when you combine that with the hottest temperatures of the year, I mean, no matter how much I'm coming out here and watering and trying to cool the plants off, it's still gonna stress them out. So I just feel like that might have impacted everything. But you know, the mint, it was okay. I had a little bit of disease issue, which made some of it not harvestable, and some of them flowered, some of them didn't. But I kept it in place over the summer, and right now in the fall, now that it cooled off, it looks really good. And I've used some this fall, so I'm gonna overwinter it and keep it for this next year and see how it looks for the springtime, and hopefully it'll do a lot better. And then last of my 1%ers is sea oats, inland sea oats. Now, this is a native shrub to Texas, and I don't actually grow this on my farm. It grows around my neighborhood. So what I did this year is I went in the summer, these shrubs will start to put out seed pods, which are green, which you can harvest and use. But in the fall, they turn a really pretty gold color as they dry out, and that was most of what I harvested and used and sold. It creates a really pretty, like, airy element. So while I didn't sell a lot of these, they were highly profitable for me because all I had to do was go out in my neighborhood and cut them. I didn't have to do anything with growing them. So I'll continue to use them next year. I don't think they're gonna be a big seller, but once again, very profitable. All right, the next kind of large group of flowers I'm gonna go over are all between 1 and 5% of my total sales. So not the worst, not the best, just kind of in the middle. First up is stock. So my stock this year was okay. I had some transplants that did not do well over the winter. And so the stock that I did have grow, I used, and I love stock, especially because it smells so lovely. But I lost a lot of my seedlings over the winter. I think just from being too wet a lot of the time. So what I did this year is, of course, I started all my own and I have them growing outside, but I also ordered plugs, and I'm gonna see if the plugs do better than me starting my own stock. But I'm growing a lot of it. I'm growing a lot of different colors because it really is so pretty. Next up on the list, black-eyed Susans. Black-eyed Susans, just like some of these other flowers, grow wild on my farm. I mean, I planted some and they've just like self-seeded and exploded. So really cool flower to use. They're a Texas native. I don't purposely like go plant more. I just let it self-seed and grow, and I go harvest it. So it's a highly profitable flower. Next up is Bupleurum. Bupleurum can be a little tricky, so I don't grow this myself. I buy in plugs, and I will say in general this past year, I bought in a lot more plugs than I have in the past, and that really helped me out. I mean, of course, I started thousands of seeds on my own, but really for me, it's running out of time. I don't live on my farm. I come out here during the day when my kids are in school, minimally on the weekends, and so my time can be very limited. And while I am fast and efficient, there's only so fast I can work, and there's really like a window that you need to get stuff started, you know, to plant out later, and that can just be tricky, you know, with some of these flowers. And Bupleurum is tricky to start by seed anyways, and I don't like direct sowing it because, I mean, it's almost 80 degrees outside today, and we're a week out from Christmas, and it likes the cold. So there's really no point in trying to direct sow it, get it to germinate when it doesn't like the heat, and then babying it to grow it over the winter. I just buy plugs in and I plant them. And usually it does fine. I can see issues with it where it doesn't get as tall as it can be, and so it makes it a little less usable. But the ones that get tall and bloom, I mean, they're beautiful. They're a beautiful addition to arrangements. Florists love them. So if I can really get better at growing Bupleurum, I think it'll be a lot bigger seller for me. Along that same line is cress. The only difference with cress is that I can start that by seed pretty easily myself. And it usually grows really well. It's just a matter of, selling it. I do have people that like buying it. I think this past year I just grew too much of it and didn't sell enough of it, but it is really easy to grow. So I would say it's a pretty profitable flower. Next up was phlox, in particular Drummond phlox, which is like the bachelor buttons. They grow, it's a Texas native. It grows naturally in the wildflower field. Highly profitable little flower, easy to harvest. I don't purposely plant it. I just let it self-seed and grow. So definitely a profitable flower. Next up is cosmos. Now cosmos, everyone loves cosmos, especially florists, especially people that do weddings. I mean, they're such a cute, beautiful little addition to bouquets and arrangements. The issue with cosmos is they are a pain in the butt to harvest. And my recommendation for making it a lot easier on yourself is consider them a one and done flower. Technically, you can harvest stems and they will put out new flowers, but it's really painful to go through cosmo plants and pick out the ones that are just at the right stage and ignore the other ones that have either blown open or they're not ready yet. That is so time consuming, which is not profitable. So my recommendation is plant a bunch, let them get to the point where they're usable, harvest them all, sell them, and then let them die and move on. And so plant cosmos in successions. And that was not something that I did this year. My cosmos were beautiful and they grew great, but I pretty much had one succession. And so when that was done, they were done and I didn't have any more going. So that's definitely something that I'm going to fix this year, is plant several successions, because it is a very profitable flower. They're very easy to grow. They don't mind the heat, and florists love them. So if you want to sell wholesale, if you want to sell to florists, definitely grow some cosmos, but plant in successions. All right, next up is goldenrod. I love goldenrod. It is a Texas native. Beautiful thing once again with goldenrod is I don't purposely grow it. It actually grows wild all around this whole area. I have some that grows wild on the farm property. It lines the streets. And so in the fall, when it's growing and becoming, at the right stage where you can use it, you will see me up and down the street on the side of the road harvesting it from the ditch or from the side of the road. I don't go into people's homes and yards, but I mean, it'll be on the side of the highway. So it's very profitable in that sense. It's beautiful. It adds a beautiful textural element to the bouquets. And I am typically able to sell a good chunk of it, not as much to florists, but to other growers, and then just use it myself in arrangements. So definitely love goldenrod. Next up on the list is mignonette. I don't know a lot of people that grow mignonette because it's really hard to find seed. I started growing it a few years ago when I saw Erin from Floret grow it, and it's this beautiful little white, airy little flower. It's more of a wildflower. It's pretty cold tolerant, which is great. And it is a bee magnet. The bees absolutely love mignonette. So if you raise honeybees like we do and you want to let it bloom out and feed your honeybees, go for it. It's really easy to grow and everybody loves it because of the way that it looks in bouquets. What I'm hoping to do over the next couple of years is grow as much of this as I can and let a good chunk of it go to seed so that I can harvest the seed and maybe get to the point where I can start selling it, because it's really hard to find seed for it right now. So stay tuned for that. Next on my list is Ami. This past year I grew green mist Ami, which is a beautiful lace flower, kind of like dill, Queen Anne's lace, all those kind of flowers. First thing, this is an awesome flower to grow on your farm or in your garden to attract predatory insects. It is a wonderful like companion plant, and it really helps improve the biodiversity of the insect life on your farm. So if that's something you're looking to do, definitely add in some lace flowers or carrot family flowers. But I think the green mist Ami can get really big, and it is so gorgeous putting it in with virtually anything. So I definitely sold a lot of this. I'm growing a big chunk of it again this year. And in my experience, it's usually pretty easy to grow. So definitely a very profitable flower. Sorry, the laundry machine's going off. It's very loud. It's an old laundry machine. Next up, we have Gomphrena. Gomphrena is another one that I think would be higher on the list if I counted all the Gomphrena that I dry. I mainly grow it for drying. I use it on any kind of dried craft that I do. The good thing with Gomphrena is it's cheap, it's easy to grow, and one plant puts out a lot of stems, so it can be very profitable. I think it's pretty easy to harvest. It's not super time consuming. It's not the easiest to harvest. It could be better, but it's super easy to grow, and it's a cute little addition to bouquets and arrangements. So definitely love Gomphrena, and we'll continue to grow that. Next up is snapdragons, and technically they are number 8 on my list, and I think they would be higher this past year, except for I had some weather issues that I think stunted some of the flowers. Pretty much any usable stem I grew, I sold, whether it was to a florist, another grower, my bouquet subscriptions, the U-Pick, I let people pick off of them at times. Any snapdragon I could harvest. Snapdragons are, I think, a must grow for any flower farm. No matter where you live in your climate, there are different types of snapdragons that do well in your climate. And so I've really honed in on varieties and colors for this next year. I'm growing Madam Butterfly because they're the more frilly flowers and the florists absolutely love them. And then I'm also growing some Potomacs, which are a lot more heat tolerant. So hopefully I can like extend my snapdragon window. Next up are marigolds. And once again, I think these are further down the list because my fall marigold harvest did not go well. So I kind of ran out of time getting stuff up and running for the fall because that has to happen at the end of summer and my kids were home and we went on vacation, yada, yada, yada. And so I chose, instead of starting seeds inside, I chose to go direct sow several of the flowers, including the marigolds. And this was right in the time where we had no rain. It was so hot, and I think they just struggled to germinate. And so I didn't have a good germination on the marigolds. The ones that grew looked great until they got too top heavy and flopped over, because I also ran out of time / was lazy and didn't go through and stake them or corral them. So they didn't have any support. A lot of the plants flopped over and started growing all twisty and wonky. So that's on me. And that's definitely something I'm going to rectify for this next year, especially because growing them in the fall can be a really big moneymaker where I live in South Texas, maybe where you live too. Diwali, which is an Indian holiday, and Dia de Muertos, which is a Mexican holiday, both fall around Halloween. They both are huge with marigolds. And so I will have people asking me for marigolds for those holidays. And unfortunately this year, I just didn't have a lot at that time. So I typically start them growing, in the spring and then keep them going into the summer and the fall. And I've just got to do better with going to start them inside, transplant them, and corral or net them and make sure they don't flop over. All right, next up on the list, number 6 is anemones. So my anemones did overall really well this year. I did have a couple of varieties that I've looked at the last couple of years that have not done as good as some others. And so this next year, I've really honed in the anemones, the tulips, the ranunculus, which ones do the best, which ones sell the best. And I'm not growing every color under the sun. I'm only going to grow these. The ones that I've seen do the best here for anemones are Galilee. They're more heat tolerant, they're tall, and for whatever reason, the white and the pink seem to grow the best and definitely are in high demand. So as many ones as I could harvest this year, I sold or used. The Bordeaux were not as popular, did not grow as well. The blue, while they're a beautiful color, they were way too short, and they've been that way the last couple of years, so I will not grow those anymore. I grew a pastel mix, which did not go very well, and then the Mistral series, which are gorgeous, but so short, so were almost like completely unusable. So I think anemones would also be higher if I just hone in on the varieties that do really well, so I'm interested to see how that compares to next year. All right, so here we are at like the top 5 spots. So these are like my best sellers. At number 5 with almost 6%, we have Azuratum. This was my first year growing Azuratum as a cut flower. You will see it wild here and there, like the wild variety, but there are ones that are specifically made for cut flowers. They get a lot bigger and taller, and so that's what I grew this year, and they were gorgeous. Every plant got big and huge, put out so many stems. The color is beautiful, fun little texture, wildly popular with every method of my selling. So I was so impressed and in love with them. I was able to keep them going over the summer, and they are looking great right now. I had a few bloom in the fall, not a lot. And I think that's just because it still stays so warm through the fall where I live. And so I'm going to overwinter them and see how that group does. And then I also bought more so that I have almost like full 2 beds of Azuratum because it sold like hotcakes, and I want to make sure that I have plenty for next year. Number 4 on the list was sunflowers. And I think the only reason why it's only number 4, not higher, is because my fall sunflower harvest took a big hit. I had several successions of sunflowers that got completely wiped out by ants. I was overwhelmed, and I think because of the heat and the dryness, I was overwhelmed with fire ants, which are big in Texas, and leafcutter ants. And both of those will completely decimate a bed overnight, which is super frustrating. And when I realized what was happening, it was too late. They were gone, so I had to plant more sunflowers. And so I only had like a handful this fall. And that also limited my U-pick openings. I opened one day of my U-pick the whole fall, which was like heartbreaking. And I had people asking me to come. Hi, Pumpkin. Oh, Pumpkin wants some attention, be in the video. I had people asking me to come to the U-pick, and I had to tell them like, oh, sorry, my flowers are non-existent. They all got eaten. So this next year, I'm definitely going to stay on top of the ants. You have to spray them. There is no organic way to get rid of them. I've tried everything, and they can be so overwhelming. And it doesn't help that my oldest daughter is allergic to fire ants. Great. So I sold a ton of sunflowers earlier in the year. The fall was definitely disappointing, but they're a huge moneymaker for me. They're very easy to grow and harvest and everything. So I love sunflowers. Everybody here loves sunflowers, especially all the different colors and shapes that you can grow these days. So, got to do better next year with pest control. All right, number 3 on my list was ranunculus. This was the first year that I had a really good ranunculus harvest. I think I just really honed in on growing them well. One of the big things being, once it warms up a little bit in the spring and they start to take off and form buds, you got to shade them. They do not like temperatures 70 degrees and up. And of course, where I live, you can hit that here and there over the winter, but definitely in the spring, it will get to that temperature pretty quick. So shading them keeps them slightly cooler enough to where they'll keep going and keep putting out buds. So I think that's a big trick for growing ranunculus and anemones where we live in a hotter climate. But they were beautiful. I had some colors that did better than others, so those are the ones that I'm going to grow again, but I sold a ton of them, used a ton of them. I also grew for the first time butterfly ranunculus, which I fell in love with, and I'm definitely going to grow some new varieties of those this year. So yeah, I'm not growing more ranunculus than I have in the past because the issue with these is corms are expensive. They are profitable if you can grow them well and sell a lot of the stems, but if you have any hiccups, they can quickly become unprofitable. So if you're new to ranunculus, I would definitely advise start with like a small amount, hone in on how to grow it, get that down, and then you can start to expand your numbers. All right, tied at number 2 were 2 flowers. The first one is tulips. I definitely had a good tulip year. I will preface this with, while I sold a lot of tulips, I sold almost every tulip I could harvest. I had a lot of loss. And actually, I lost money this year on tulips. So I think this is also why it's good to note like your revenue compared to profitability. You know, tulips can sell for, a good chunk of money, but the bulbs cost a lot. The actual growing of them I find is pretty easy because I grow them in crates, but the bulbs are expensive. They're getting more expensive, especially with the tariffs coming from the Netherlands. And so when you have some that don't grow or are unusable, it quickly becomes unprofitable. So what I'm doing this next year to combat that is I'm only growing, I think like 3 or 4 varieties, pinks and whites, and I'm growing them for Valentine's. If I get them planted at the right time, especially with them being pre-chilled, they will bloom in time for Valentine's, and I am going to try to sell all of my tulips for Valentine's. And I think if I can do that and get them to grow well, sell out, they will become highly profitable for me. Because right now they're not. And they're close to getting the axe, which is unfortunate because they're the first flower to bloom on the farm. But I can't keep wasting money on all these different types of bulbs if they're not going to grow. So we're going to see how this plant goes next year. I think it's going to go well. Fingers crossed. All right, the other flower tied at number 2 was Status. Status is a must grow. It shocks me that there's people that don't grow Status because I use it for everything. You can dry it. You can, florists love it. It is a great filler. I use it in my bouquet subscriptions. People pick it when they come to the U-Pick. Can't get enough Status. It is a must grow. It is so profitable. You can grow it easily on your own. You can buy plugs. It's really low maintenance. In my experience, it's pretty pest and disease resistant, and each plant puts out multiple stems. So highly profitable flower. I sold a crap load of Status, and it is another one that actually now has a true blue color. You can grow blue Status, which is a wonderful, wonderful accent when you have a lot of other colored flowers. So yeah, I'm growing a whole bed, maybe 2 beds of Status, and I will always, always recommend growing Status. All right, my number 1 flower with almost 1/3 of all the flowers I sold. You might have guessed it because I talk about this flower all the time on my channel. It's also my most profitable flower. It is zinnias. I love zinnias. They're my favorite flower. They grow really well here. I've seen a lot of people, especially this year, give zinnias a lot of hate. And in my opinion, I think that's people that live in a cooler environment or have colder, winters or springs, because it doesn't like the cold. It loves the heat. So of course, me in South Texas, it grows great here. Is it highly disease prone? Yeah, but my recommendation for that is just plant multiple successions. So once it starts looking crappy and getting, black spot or powdery mildew, you can just get rid of that succession, and then you're on to the next one. But I've grown, I don't know, probably almost every variety of zinnias you can think of, every color. I've really honed in on the ones that do really well, grow well, that, you know, people love. If you want to hear more about the particulars of growing zinnias, I will link a video below that I did all about zinnias. And so I grow a crap ton of them. I've also put in a whole new field to grow in that's probably just going to be for zinnias, so I can grow so many different types. But another benefit to them is they don't ship well at all. So florists can only find them if they're grown locally. So my florist loves zinnias, especially, you know, you grow those big, beautiful pastel colors, the ivories, the blush pinks, you know, for weddings, the salmon colors. People love those, florists love those, but I sold so many stems of zinnias. They're highly profitable. The seeds, depending on the variety, can be inexpensive or a little more expensive, but one plant produces at least 5, 6, 7 stems, maybe up to 10 if you can like cut on it multiple times. So if you look at it like that, they're very, very profitable, and especially if you can, you know, sell a lot of them. So of course I will continue to grow zinnias and grow probably even more of them this next year. All right, guys, that is it. I'm sorry this was so long, but I was really trying to go through and give you some, you know, tips on all these different types of flowers. I hope this was helpful for you. Once again, if you have any questions, comment below. And if you have any recommendations for any future videos or things that maybe you want to take more of a deep dive in, hit me up. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. I will not have a video the next couple of weeks because it is Christmas and New Year's break, and I want to spend time with my family. So I will see you guys in the new year. Thanks for watching.